What's up everybody, this is Brad Decater, and today we're going to be talking about how to get your offer accepted in a tight market. So right now we're in a market that is extremely tight and competitive for buyers. Just last week we actually made an offer on a house on behalf of a buyer, and there was actually 30 offers and it went over 15% over asking price. So it's quite competitive to say the least. So if you want to know the strategies on how I make my offers stand out, stay till the very end for my last tip. So the first strategy to get our offer accepted, or at least to help, is to write a personal note to the seller from the buyers. So we would say, buyer 1 and buyer 2 are engaged to be married or have been married 3 years. We're starting a family. We have 3 kids. We absolutely love the house. We love this specific feature, that feature, the backyard, anything about the house that you absolutely love or that your clients love, and also a little bit more about yourself. When it comes to selling a property, of course, the most important thing to the seller is typically going to be money. So who's going to pay the most amount of money for the property, and also make sure that they're going to have the ability to close. But at the same time, they are human. And so we find that the letter to the seller, if it's personal touch, at the very worst, it's not going to hurt anything. But we find that in a lot of cases, when it's a really close call, if it's a pretty good sob story, it really, really helps, because people are driven to make decisions on emotion. And even though it's usually mostly about money, it can't hurt to write the letter. And in some cases, it could be just that little extra effort with the letter that gets your offer accepted. So my feeling is when I'm helping clients and as their realtor is, why not try with a letter to help? Now the second way is going to be our contingencies. So when sellers are looking at offers, they're looking at the price and the terms of the contract. Now the price is obviously pretty self-explanatory. There can be escalation clauses, and we might get into that here in this video. But the terms is a very, very loose and broad statement. Terms just mean the contingencies and other items in the contract that are not the purchase price. Some of these things are the inspection contingency, the appraisal, the financing contingency, rent back periods, time frames. All those things are different terms of the contract. And so to make our offer the most attractive, we want to have the least amount of contingencies or the best terms for the same purchase price. So if a seller's looking at a couple of offers and they're both very similar in price, the one with the best terms is going to win. In other words, the least amount of contingencies. So number 1 is going to be the inspection contingency. Now, for a seller, the inspection contingency is a huge deal, because 9 out of 10 properties that do fall out of contract and the deal falls apart is actually because of the inspection contingency. It's the most likely time for the buyer to actually get out of the contract. They could be completely scared away and they want to leave. That happens all the time. But also, it's their best time to renegotiate the deal, because once they have the inspection, now they have another chance to actually say, hey, we want you to repair this, that, and the other, or we want this much money back. So it's their first opportunity after making the original contract to get more money back or repairs and other such items. And so most buyers do use that leverage to try and negotiate some more. So for the seller, if someone's going to not have an inspection contingency in place, that's going to be massive for the chances that it's going to close. That brings it from maybe a 60% chance of closing to like a 90% chance of closing, because like I said, the most reason why people get out of a contract is due to the inspection contingency. So that only leaves a couple more contingencies left that are really important to the offer. Now, as a realtor, I have a really hard time telling clients, hey, waive the inspection. I've bought in houses myself, of course, and I don't actually advise that you should waive the inspection. Now, that being said, in a super competitive market like ours is in the Seattle and East Side market, sometimes you have to do certain things to get the house. And so what I recommend to my clients is to plan ahead, have the strategy that we set up in the buyer's consultation, and I love to do something called a pre-inspection. Now, a pre-inspection is something that you would use if you're really confident that you really want the house and you're not afraid of losing the same inspection that you're going to be doing if you got in contract, but you're doing it before you write the offer. The reason you do that is so that you actually can write your offer not contingent upon the inspection. So you do the inspection before you make the offer. You find out all what's going on about it. If you still feel good about it, you can make the offer being informed about the property and feeling confident moving forward, but not having an actual contingency in the contract. So to the seller, this is the same thing as waiving the inspection, even though you already got it. because you're basically knowing what you're getting into. So I absolutely love this strategy. And as far as the seller side goes, it's actually a better offer to have a pre-inspection than it is to waive the inspection. And this is for liability reasons. Even though the contracts do pretty well protect them, between the two, as a seller, I would rather have them pre-inspect and know what they're getting into, as opposed to waiving it and finding out after a week that the foundation's cracked, the roof's falling over. It's potential for a lawsuit, whereas if they got an inspection, you are very, very well protected. I mean, they got their own inspection with their own inspector. They can't really sue the seller for anything that happens because they inspected the property. That's kind of on them. So pre-inspections are amazing. They help our offers so much. As far as the monetary value of it, it's really hard to define what it's actually worth, but in a real life scenario, if I had one offer at $500,000 and one at $510,000, and the $500,000 one waived the inspection, I'd probably take that one. Honestly, the $10,000 is important, of course, but the chances of them getting out of the contract or negotiating you down to $500 or below after the inspection is quite high. So waiving the inspection, or excuse me, doing the pre-inspection is actually a really good way to make your offer stand out. So another contingency is gonna be the financing contingency. Now, in this market with COVID going on right now, I hardly ever would like to advise clients to waive Form 22A, which is the financing addendum, at least here in Washington State. But if you're lender and you are super confident, waiving financing is also one of the strongest things you can do. By waiving financing, you're also waiving the appraisal, which is another reason why a lot of deals fall through if the property doesn't appraise for the value of the contract. And in these 30 offer, multiple offer situations where the price is going like crazy high, having this insurance for the seller is super important. Which brings me to my next one. So earnest money. The higher your earnest money, the stronger your offer. Earnest money is a good faith deposit that stays with the escrow company until closing, and it's still your money, but that money is at risk if you were to breach contract or get out of it without a contingency in place. So the higher amount your earnest money is, the more serious you're saying to the seller that you are about the property. And the more serious you are, the better buyer you are, and they're more confident that you're gonna close the deal. So in a real life scenario, if a seller had two offers at the exact same price, but the earnest money was different, of course, it'd be a no-brainer. Assuming everything else is equal, whoever has the highest earnest money is gonna get their offer accepted, because that gives the seller the most insurance if the deal was to fall through, because they get to keep that money. Now, so just having high earnest money relative to the purchase price is gonna be super important, and that helps your offer a lot. But the other trick we have, if you feel confident and you're okay with this, it's just, this is the tricks that are kind of happening right now, is actually doing a non-refundable earnest money deposit. Typically, you deposit your earnest money and it's held in escrow and it never leaves there until either it's used for your down payment, part of your closing cost, or if you breach contract, it goes to the seller. But in this scenario, it's non-refundable. So you give it to escrow, but then it's gone. They can release that to the seller immediately. So basically, no matter what contingencies happen, no matter what happens at all during the contract, that money is gonna be the seller's no matter what. It is non-refundable. And now talk about an insurance policy for a seller. If your earnest money, let's say it's $20,000 on a $500,000 purchase, if that is non-refundable, that tells them how serious you are. You are literally saying, no matter what happens, here's 20 grand. This is how confident we are that this house is gonna close with us. So please choose us. So you can see the earnest money being non-refundable. Honestly, that is about the most strong thing you can do. It's essentially making it so there is no contingencies in place in the offer. You can have the inspection contingency, you can have the appraisal, the financing, all as contingencies. But if your earnest money is non-refundable, it's almost like you have no contingencies at all, because the whole reason you have the contingencies in the first place is to protect your earnest money from being given to the seller if you were to get out of the contract for one of the contingencies. But if the earnest money is non-refundable, there's really nothing to protect, so it doesn't really matter. For that reason, this is my number one tip and probably the strongest thing you can do. At the same time, if you're willing to release the earnest money to the sellers and have it be non-refundable, you may as well release the rest of the contingencies, because they don't really matter at this point, unless you want to try and haggle on the inspection part or the appraisal. So let's say that you're a listing agent and you get 10 offers, and like 5 of the offers, no one even called you, texted you, did anything but email you the offer. You know nothing about the buyer, you know nothing about the agent, and they just submitted the offer. Now, that's great, they made an offer and they might be a great buyer, But what about the person who calls the agent the day of the showing, talks to them about how much they love the house, they check in about activity, they just basically build good rapport with the other agent because that's the person that they're gonna be working with. And then from there, they follow up the next day, and they kind of just stay in touch, not in a pushy way, but in a buddy-buddy relationship way, because it's our job to have a good relationship with the agent because we're gonna be working this deal together. And so when it comes down to the end there, you know, same scenario, if the seller has the same two offers, all things the exact same, but they like this agent better, and they close more deals, they're a better agent, they're good to work with, they wanna pick that one. The agent has a big influence on who the seller picks. The seller ultimately makes the decision, signs the contracts, but the agent advises them. If they tell the sellers that this agent's great to work with, and since these offers are so close, we should probably pick him, they're gonna listen to him. So having a good relationship agent to agent is gonna help you also get more deals. So if you like my tips and my content in this video, please like this video and subscribe. I'm kind of just starting out here, but I'm gonna have a lot more videos coming to you guys soon. And I'm looking forward to all your comments, and thanks for watching.